And hello everybody, this is Chris, MTGO's Rexstart, and we have a veritable smorgasbord of content this week for show and tell. The ongoing audio-video deck tech and replay series that covers the Legacy Tribal Wars format, as it is played every Saturday on Magic the Gathering Online in the Tribal Apocalypse Player Run event. And this week we are going to start with Chamale's Mono-White Samurai deck, which took down my Kamigawa Block challenge and wins a copy of Sakashima the Impostor as his prize. The challenge was that you had to play only cards, including everything but basic lands, had to be from Kamigawa Block, from one of the Kamigawa Block sets. It ended up being a very difficult challenge, but Chamale was able to take it down, going 2-1 this week. The difficulty, of course, being that Umezawa's Jite is probably the most notably powerful card, and it is not permitted in the Legacy Tribal Wars format, so that certainly makes things a little more difficult. There's also not a lot of great mana fixing, and that leads to what we see here with Chamale's build, and he's gone of Samurais. And although I've always liked adding red Samurais whenever I play the tribe, you don't necessarily have the mana fixing for it. You also have the problem that if you wanted to say add black Samurais, you've got competing double white and double black costs, and you certainly don't want that. It makes it very clunky. So to just sort of remove all that from the equation, he went straight up with a white weenie deck here. He's got 29 creatures. He's going off tribe for Lantern Kamis here, and just to kind of give him a little extra on the curve there. Plus they have evasion, which ends up being nice later with his finisher charge across the Araba. Hand of Honor, always a powerhouse. There's a lot of black decks in the format. This is very nice against them. This one is probably just in here because it's a 2-power 2-drop, but it does have Bushido, so it fights as a 3-2, which is not bad, and is also a legendary, so it turns on Kanda's Hatamoto. And Samurai the Pale Curtain, you will see that come up once in the replays. A very nice little hate bear there that basically prevents creatures from dying, permanents being put into the graveyard or exiled instead, stops some recursion tricks and things like that, but unfortunately they do have to go in from the battlefield, so it's not a perfect hate bear, but one that does see play occasionally. I always use it in commander games as well to stop a lot of the sort of recursive shenanigans that go on there. Sensei Golden Tail, which can train a non-samurai, but also, again, is just a reasonably powered Bushido guy here that also happens to turn on the Hatamoto. And we have Kitsune Blade Master, fights very well. And Opalai, with Defender not exactly being what you want here, but it does have the ability to protect some of your creatures. And, of course, it also turns on the Hatamotos, which, again, they do become 2-4 Vigilance with Bushido 1. Not too bad a deal for the 2 mana. Again, considering what you're working with here, not too bad at all. Shining Shoal was definitely a powerhouse when Kamigawa Block was first around, and puts it to some good use here. But the real hero of the deck is clearly Charge Across the Araba, which you'll be forgiven for not remembering what the sweep mechanic does. But basically, he can, if he's willing to go all in on this, he can use this as a super overrun to basically just maul the opponent once he gets to 5 mana. And since he does have some stuff on the high end here, Nagao and, of course, Charge Across the Araba, wisely playing with 23 lands, a little higher than you might play with for a white weenie deck, but definitely the way to go here. So let's take a look at some replays. We're going to start with Chamale here is up against Brother Spoon, who is playing a mono black Douthie deck. The Douthie all have Shadow, and that means that they cannot be blocked except by creatures with Shadow, but they also cannot block a creature unless it has Shadow. So the sort of can't block unblockable combo means you pretty much got to play hard aggro. And there's Douthie Slayer, the longtime hero of the Shadow creatures. And here we see just Kentaro and the Lantern Kami coming down, and they're going to trade blows because this guy can't attack him. He's got a Piston Sledge on it, so that clock is up pretty high. Now he gets him down to 13, and now here you're going to see, because these guys have Shadow and they can't block, that just out of nowhere with this seemingly innocuous board, We're going to have Charge Across the Araba for 5 planes, putting him to Xaxes for 13 damage, and that takes care of that. Now let's go and take a look at another match against Brother Spoon. Another game, sorry. And Chamale's going to keep another hand with a Charge Across the Araba. Some little weenies here. Hand of Honor comes down. Nice against the mono black deck always. And Brother Spoon apparently kept a 1-lander, so ouch there. Chamale begins the beats. Lantern Kami comes out, and then Samurai the Pale Curtain comes out. And, oh, there's a Perilous Mirror, which unfortunately has to die in order to do its damage, which it will not be able to do with Samurai the Pale Curtain out. So he blocks a Hand of Honor here, but it gets exiled, and so he's not able to use it to take out one of the creatures, and quickly being overrun there and can't recover. So let's take a look at Chamale's deck playing here against Romulos now, and Romulos is playing Red-Green Berserkers. This was a deck that first came to a bit of prominence in the last Endangered event, and this was an Endangered week. And he's playing some Goblin Guides there, off Tribe, because they're not Berserkers. And double Goblin Guide hand, always a nightmare to deal with. So just there on the second turn, boom. But now the Candace Hatamoto is going to do a pretty good Curd Ape impression in blocking and killing this Goblin Guide. Whiffs on the Goblin Guide triggers there. So down to 10. Jund Hackblade, unfortunately not with haste for Romulos, because there's not another multicolored creature out. And Opalai comes down, so now that Hatamoto is doing some good work as a 2/4 Bushido Vigilance, going to be able to attack in every turn. And Romulos is going to beat in again, and there's the nice first striking Kitsune Blade Master coming up next turn. So Romulos went pretty all in here. He's going to bolt away that Opalai. He may have been forgetting about the Bushido there, thinking that that would end up having killed the Hatamoto as well. Not sure. Lantern Kami comes down, and then we're going to have, I believe, Sensei Golden Tail, yes, to power up the Hatamoto, which will now beat in again. Chamale's deck running pretty good on just 3 lands here. And now Romulos is going to cast a Bloodbraid Elf, and I'll pause here because this is one of my main complaints about this Berserker deck's efficacy, is that while Bloodbraid Elf is a good creature, the trouble is that you're not cascading into things that are necessarily worth a card at the point where you're casting Bloodbraid Elf. Normally, if you playing Bloodbraid Elf, you want to set up your deck so that it can get at least an extra card's worth of value. But at this point in the game, if you're cascading into a Goblin Guide or a Raging Goblin, that's good in some situations, maybe when you're recovering from a board wipe. But if your opponent has any kind of board presence, it's a really weak cascade. So, you know, Bloodbraid Elf is generally, the decks are built around it to make sure that it gets the optimal number of good cascades, whereas here there's probably just too many Raging Goblins and things like that that are going to be irrelevant. That being said, it is also multicolored, so you can cascade into a Jund Hackblade and get a pretty big boost out of that. So while I like that aspect of the Berserker deck for, say, recovering against a board sweeper, I don't like it as much in any kind of you know, weenie creature mirror. Rancor isn't a particularly thrilling cascade either, since you can't cast it on the Bloodbraid Elf. It's not in play yet, so it turns into basically a dead cascade against if you have no other creatures in play. So here we're going to see Chamale willing to trade here and give him the Rancor back. And although Chamale is down at 7, he now has pretty good board presence here. And he's going to go ahead and beat in because he knows he's going to be able to drop a, I believe, the Kitsune Blade Master here. Oh, nope, the Lantern Kami and I guess a Hand of Honor. So with all the haste guys, you do have to be prepared for that, especially when you get down to a low life total. Again, Kanda's Hatamoto's doing that here. And now you're going to get the rest of the match is going to be cut off. We get a Stormblood Berserker and then the footage ends. So I'm not entirely sure what happened here, but I have to assume from Chamale being way up in cards on hand that he was able to finish it off. So anyways, that's the deck, and since the challenge has been taken down, it's time for the new challenge. All the details will be at the end of the article, but it is going to be the Old Fogey Challenge. You're going to have to play only with cards that were originally printed in their paper versions in either Alpha Beta Unlimited or the original old standalone expansions, which for these purposes are going to be Arabian Nights, Antiquities, Legends, the Dark, and Fallen Empires. Fallen Empires is going to be included because it is somewhat old. It came out in fall of '94, and it does allow for some more budget options, gives you some more tribes to work with, because there was sort of a mini tribal theme in Fallen Empires. And so if I had taken Fallen Empires off, I think there would have been too few options. So I'm going to go ahead and put Fallen Empires in there. But not included here is Ice Age, Homelands, Alliances, any of that onwards. So only up, it had to be originally printed in those sets. And again, this will all be explained at the end of the show and tell text write-up segment. And there are going to be a couple additional restrictions. I'm going to ban humans, and I am also going to prevent people from playing mono white or mono black decks, because I want a little bit more challenge here. I understand that mana fixing is going to be expensive in this format, but mono white and mono black were going to be just way too easy to build, so I'm going to put a bit of a kibosh on that. You'll see all the details in the explanation, and I will also announce what the prize is at the end of the article. So stay tuned to the end of the article for that. And congratulations, Chamale, and I will be back for part 2 in just a moment.